I'm not signing joint custody. Alina's voice cut through the silent courtroom like a knife through paper. She pushed the unsigned papers across the wooden table with her fingertips, a smirk playing at the corner of her mouth. The judge sighed heavily and leaned back in his chair. My lawyer lowered his head, defeat already settling into his shoulders. My hands started trembling. I gripped the edge of the table to keep them still, but inside I was falling apart. This wasn't supposed to happen. We had agreed. We had talked about this. She had promised. But watching her sit there with that satisfied look on her face, I realized I had been blindsided. Completely and utterly blindsided. The judge spoke, but I couldn't hear the words over the ringing in my ears. Something about visitation schedules and reconvening in 30 days. Alina gathered her things calmly, like she had just won a game. Please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments where you are listening from. My name is Eli Mercer. I'm 34 years old, a graphic designer, and until this moment, I believed I could trust the mother of my son. I was wrong. This was the moment everything I had built as a father was ripped away from me in a single sentence. I stormed out of the courtroom into the hallway, my chest tight with rage and disbelief mixed together in a way that made it hard to breathe. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, too bright, too harsh. Then I saw him. Leo. My 5-year-old son sat on a bench beside Alina's sister, coloring quietly in a dinosaur coloring book. He looked so small sitting there, his legs swinging because they didn't reach the floor. I forced myself to smile as I walked over. He looked up and his whole face lit up when he saw me. "Dad," he said, holding up his picture. "Look, I made a T-Rex." "That's amazing, buddy," I managed to say, my voice cracking slightly. I knelt down and hugged him, breathing in the smell of his strawberry shampoo. Alina walked past us without saying a word. She wouldn't even look at me. Her sister stood up and took Leo's hand. "You'll get your weekends," Alina muttered over her shoulder, her voice cold and dismissive. Weekends. Like I was a babysitter. Like I was just someone who visited his life instead of living it with him. I watched them walk away, Leo looking back at me with confused eyes, and I felt like a visitor in my own child's world. 2 years earlier, everything had been different. We were different. Or at least I thought we were. I remember the family picnics at Riverside Park, the birthday parties with too much cake, and Leo's laughter echoing through our apartment. We took photos together, smiled together, planned together. I genuinely believed we were building something stable for our son. Alina had always been focused on appearances. Every moment was carefully documented for social media. Every outfit Leo wore had to be photo-ready. Every meal had to look perfect before we could eat it. At first, I thought it was harmless. Just modern parenting, right? Everyone shares their lives online now. But then I started noticing how much time she spent staging moments instead of living them. How she would make Leo pose for photos until he cried from exhaustion. How our entire life seemed to exist for an audience of strangers. When I suggested we post less about Leo online, she looked at me like I had slapped her. "You are being controlling," she said, her voice sharp. "You want to isolate me." That was the first time she used that word, controlling. It wouldn't be the last. The shift happened slowly, then all at once. Alina stopped asking for my input on decisions about Leo. She just started deciding things and telling me afterward. She enrolled him in a new preschool without discussing it with me. She scheduled doctor's appointments during my work hours. She made playdates with other parents I had never met. When I tried to talk to her about it, she said I was being difficult, that I didn't understand how hard it was for her to manage everything. I started noticing small lies. She said she was taking Leo to her mother's house, but her mother later mentioned she hadn't seen them in weeks. She claimed she was picking Leo up from daycare early, but the staff told me he stayed until closing time. I rationalized it all. I told myself she was stressed, that we just needed to communicate better, that it would get better if I kept the peace. But behind closed doors, she was rewriting our story. She started telling her friends and family that I was distant, emotionally absent, that I didn't help enough with Leo. None of it was true, but the narrative was already forming around me like a cage I couldn't see. The relationship ended on a Tuesday night in October. We had been arguing about money, about schedules, about everything and nothing all at once. What I didn't know was that Alina had her phone recording the entire conversation. She provoked me, twisted my words, cut me off every time I tried to explain myself. She wanted me to lose my temper. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I just said I couldn't do this anymore, that we needed to separate for Leo's sake. The next day, she posted vague quotes on social media about escaping toxicity and protecting my peace. Her comments filled with support from people who had no idea what had actually happened. By the time I moved out the following week, half her family had already chosen sides. Her mother called me selfish. Her sister blocked my number. Her friends left sympathetic comments under photos of Leo looking sad, as if I was the reason for his pain. I packed my things quietly and left without fighting. I thought if I kept the peace, we could co-parent civilly. I was wrong about that too. We went to mediation 3 months after I moved out. The mediator was a kind woman named Patricia, who helped us draft what seemed like a fair custody arrangement. 50-50 time. Shared decision-making. Alternating holidays. It all looked reasonable on paper. I left that meeting feeling hopeful for the first time in months. I even sent Alina flowers the next day with a card that said, "Thank you for being civil." For Leo, she replied with a single text message, "We'll see." I didn't understand what she meant at the time. I thought she was just being cautious, that she needed time to trust that this could work between us. But now, looking back, I realized she was already planning to break the agreement. She was letting me think everything was fine, so I would lower my guard. She was stalling, waiting for the right moment to pull the rug out from under me, and I fell for it completely. I trusted her words. I believed that because we had both signed a document, she would honor it. The flowers arrived at her apartment the next morning. She posted a photo of them on her social media with the caption, "Moving forward." Everyone thought it was about healing. I thought it meant cooperation. It meant neither of those things. 2 weeks after mediation, Alina's mother called me. Her voice was sharp and accusing from the first word. "We need to talk about your instability," she said, not even bothering with a greeting. I was confused. "What are you talking about?" She listed off things I had supposedly done. Missing Leo's bedtime, forgetting to pack his lunch, leaving him with strangers. None of it was true. "Alina told you that?" I asked, my stomach sinking. "She's worried about Leo's safety with you." Her mother continued, "Maybe you need help, Eli. Professional help." I tried to explain that none of those things had happened, but she cut me off and hung up. I sat in my car in the parking lot of my office building, staring at my phone in disbelief. Alina had been spreading lies about me to her family, painting me as an unstable parent who couldn't be trusted. When I called my own parents to tell them what happened, they told me to avoid conflict, to not make waves, that fighting with Alina would only make things worse for Leo. The isolation was starting to close in around me. I was the villain in a story I didn't write, and nobody wanted to hear my side. For months after our mediation, Alina moved 40 minutes away. She called it finding a better school district for Leo. She didn't need my consent because she wasn't moving out of state. Suddenly, every visit became a negotiation. Every pickup and drop-off took over an hour of driving. My work schedule had to bend around her convenience. Leo's phone calls with me became monitored conversations. I could hear Alina in the background, listening to every word. Leo started speaking in careful, guarded sentences like he was afraid of saying the wrong thing. That's when I started documenting everything. Every text message, every email, every conversation. I created a folder on my computer labeled Leo Documentation and began keeping detailed notes. I wrote down dates and times. I saved screenshots. I recorded the mileage on my car for every trip. I kept receipts from every expense. I didn't know exactly what I was building yet, but some instinct told me I would need proof of everything that was happening. That one day, the truth would matter more than words. My lawyer had told me once that family court cared about patterns, not incidents. So I started tracking the pattern that was emerging. Alina's chaos versus my consistency. Her broken promises versus my reliability. I was building a case without even realizing it yet. It was a Friday in February when everything started to shift. Alina was supposed to pick Leo up from his aftercare program at 5:30. I was working late at my office, finishing up a client presentation. At 6:15, my phone rang. It was Leo's school. "Mr. Mercer, we've been trying to reach Leo's mother for over an hour," the administrator said. "He's the last child here, and we need someone to pick him up." I dropped everything, grabbed my keys, and ran to my car. The drive felt endless, even though it only took 23 minutes. When I got there, Leo was sitting in the office with his backpack, his face tear-stained and red. He saw me and immediately started crying again, this time from relief. "I thought nobody was coming," he whispered as I hugged him. The teacher who had stayed late looked at me with concern. "Does his mom forget often?" she asked quietly. I didn't answer. I couldn't. But I wrote down every detail that night. The time of the call, the teacher's name, the look on Leo's face. I added it to my folder. Another piece of evidence and a pattern I could no longer ignore. After that night, I decided to stop reacting to Alina's chaos and start creating something stable for Leo during our time together. Even though I only had him on weekends, I would make every hour count. I established a routine. Friday nights were pizza and movie nights. Saturday mornings we made pancakes together. Saturday afternoons were for the park or the library. Sunday mornings were for sleeping in and lazy breakfasts. I kept his bedtime consistent. I made sure he had the same stuffed dinosaur and the same blue blanket at my apartment that he had at Alina's. I read him the same 3 bedtime stories he loved. I didn't have much time with him, but the time I had was predictable, safe, calm. One Sunday evening, as I was buckling him into his car seat to take him back to Alina's, Leo said something that broke my heart and gave me hope at the same time. "Dad, I like it here. These are my calm days." Calm days. He was 5 years old and already understood the difference between chaos and peace. I drove him back to Alina's apartment with tears in my eyes, but also with the new determination. If I could give him nothing else, I could give him those calm days. I kept every text message Alina sent. Every single one. "Sorry, can't drop him off today. Something came up. He's too tired to visit this weekend. He has a cold. Better if he stays home. I forgot about that. Can we reschedule?" Each message was another broken promise. Another disrupted weekend. Another disappointment for Leo. At first, I would respond with frustration. I would argue. I would point out that she was violating our agreement. But then I realized arguing was getting me nowhere. So I changed my strategy. I stopped fighting and started archiving. I would respond with simple, factual sentences. "Our agreement states I have Leo this weekend." Or, "This is the 3rd cancellation this month." No emotion, just facts. And I saved everything. The digital trail grew thicker with each passing month. Screenshots organized by date in folders. Emails printed and filed chronologically. I was building something, though I still wasn't sure exactly what. A timeline. A pattern. Evidence of her inconsistency compared to my reliability. My lawyer had said courts care about documentation, so I became meticulous about documenting everything, even the smallest details. Every broken promise she made was another piece of proof that I was the stable parent. In May, Leo's kindergarten teacher asked to speak with me after school. Her name was Mrs. Patterson, and she had kind eyes that crinkled when she smiled. "I wanted to mention something I've noticed," she said carefully, as if choosing her words with great precision. "Leo seems calmer and more focused after weekends with you." I blinked. "What do you mean?" She showed me Leo's behavior chart. On Mondays after my weekends, he was engaged and happy. On Mondays after Alina's full weekends with him, he was withdrawn and distracted. "I'm not making any judgments," she added quickly, "but consistency really matters for children his age. And whatever you're doing during your time with him is working well." That small observation hit me like sunlight breaking through clouds after a storm. For the first time since the courthouse, someone else saw what I was seeing. Someone else noticed the difference between chaos and stability. between my parenting and Alina's. I thanked Mrs. Patterson and asked if she would be willing to document our observations. She said she already was, as part of Leo's school file. Another piece of evidence I hadn't even asked for. The truth was beginning to assemble itself without me forcing it. A week after my conversation with Mrs. Patterson, Alina posted a photo on social media that made my blood run cold. It was a picture of Leo crying, his face red and his eyes filled with tears. The caption read, "When he has to go to his dad's, my poor baby hates leaving me." The comments flooded in immediately. Dozens of people offering sympathy, telling her how strong she was, calling me cruel for forcing visits. I stared at my phone, humiliated and furious. She had weaponized our son's emotions for public sympathy. She had turned a private moment into ammunition against me. I wanted to respond, to post my own pictures showing Leo happy during our time together, to defend myself against this public attack. But I didn't. I stayed silent. Instead, I took a quiet photo that same weekend. Leo was giggling while we made pancakes together, flour on his nose, pure joy on his face. I saved the photo in my documentation folder. I didn't post it anywhere. I didn't use my son for social media warfare, but I kept it as evidence of the truth, for when the truth would matter more than her carefully constructed narrative. That photo stayed private, but it was there, waiting for the right moment to prove what our weekends were really like. In July, Leo had a scheduled pediatrician appointment for his kindergarten vaccinations. Alina was supposed to take him. It was on the custody calendar we had both agreed to. The pediatrician's office called me at 2 in the afternoon. "Mr. Mercer, we had Leo scheduled for noon today, but no one showed up. Is everything all right?" I called Alina immediately. She didn't answer. I texted her. No response. I called the doctor's office back and rescheduled the appointment for the next day. During my time with Leo, I took it myself. The pediatrician, Dr. Kumar, made a note in Leo's file. "Parental inconsistency," he wrote, showing me the screen. "This is important to document for the child's medical records." I stayed calm. I thanked Dr. Kumar professionally, and then I went home and added this incident to my growing folder of documentation. Another missed appointment, another broken promise, another example of the pattern that was becoming impossible to ignore. The story was beginning to shift, piece by piece. Not because I was loud or aggressive about it, but because the truth was slowly, methodically building itself through documented facts. Every missed appointment, every broken promise, every moment of her chaos compared to my consistency. The evidence was piling up, and I was simply the person keeping track of it all. My lawyer, a straightforward man named Mr. Pierce, looked at me across his desk with serious eyes. "Eli, you need to understand something important," he said, leaning forward. "You're not going to win this by getting angry. You're not going to win by fighting fire with fire." He tapped a folder of documentation I had brought him. Months of texts, emails, photos, and notes. "You'll win by being exactly what you're being. Consistent. Reliable. Calm. Courts don't reward the parent who yells the loudest. They reward the parent who shows up." I nodded, absorbing his words. "Keep doing exactly what you're doing," he continued. "Document everything. Stay professional in all communications. Don't take her bait when she tries to provoke you. Every calm response, every kept promise, every documented interaction is building your case." From that day forward, I followed his advice religiously. Every exchange with Alina was documented. Every email I sent was professional and factual. Every response was measured and calm. Even when she tried to provoke me, I didn't react. I just documented and moved forward. My quiet revenge wasn't revenge at all. It was simply being the parent Leo deserved, consistently and without drama, and letting the truth speak for itself when the time came. In September, Leo's first grade class did a project called "Who Makes Me Feel Safe?" Each child had to draw a picture and write a sentence about safety. Leo drew 2 stick figures holding hands, one big, one small. They were standing inside a little house with a red roof. He labeled it in his careful kindergarten handwriting, "Dad Days." His teacher, Mrs. Patterson, sent the picture home with a note saying how sweet it was. Leo brought it to Alina's house first, since it was her week. She saw it and immediately tore it in half. Leo called me that night crying. Mom said I'm not allowed to make pictures like that anymore. She said I'm being mean to her. You weren't being mean, buddy, I told him gently. You were just answering the question honestly. After we hung up, I documented the phone call. Date, time, what Leo said, how upset he sounded. 2 days later, Alina sent me an angry text accusing me of brainwashing Leo, of turning him against her, of coaching him on what to say. None of it was true. I had never spoken badly about Alina to Leo. Not once. But her accusation told me something important. She was getting worried. The truth was starting to leak through the cracks in her story, and she could feel her control slipping. By October, Alina started withholding visits entirely. She stopped bringing Leo to our agreed exchange points. She stopped answering my calls about pickup times. Her excuse was always the same. Leo is too anxious to see you right now. Too anxious. As if our calm days together made him anxious. As if the routine and stability I provided was harmful to him. I knew it wasn't true, but she was using Leo's supposed anxiety as a weapon to keep him from me. I had no choice but to file a motion with the court for enforcement of our custody agreement. I didn't want to. I hated the idea of dragging us back to court, but she was leaving me no option. When Alina found out I had filed the motion, she went online and posted about it. She painted me as desperate and vindictive. Said I was harassing her. Said I was putting Leo through unnecessary stress. Her friends and family rallied around her again with comments of support. Poor Alina, dealing with such a difficult co-parent. I ignored all of it. I didn't respond to her posts. I didn't defend myself publicly. I just waited for the truth to work its way out through the proper legal channels, where facts mattered more than social media narratives. Late one Friday night, after another canceled weekend with Leo, I sat alone in my apartment and broke down completely. The weight of everything crashed over me at once. The isolation, the helplessness, the pain of being kept away from my son by someone who was supposed to share parenting with me. I pulled out my phone and started recording a video. Not for anyone else, just for myself. I don't know if this is ever going to get better, I said to the camera through tears, but I'm not giving up on him. I will never give up on my son, no matter how long this takes, no matter how hard she makes it. I watched the video back once, then saved it in a private folder. That raw moment, that breakdown, became my turning point. I stopped feeling hurt and started feeling determined. This wasn't about me and Alina anymore. This was about Leo having at least one parent who was stable and consistent. If I had to be that parent alone, then I would be that parent alone. But I would be that parent. From that night forward, I approached everything with renewed focus. Not anger, not revenge, just unwavering determination to do right by my son. Over the following months, something unexpected began to happen. People started noticing the pattern. Mrs. Patterson, Leo's teacher, reached out and offered to provide a statement about Leo's behavior patterns related to our custody schedule. Dr. Kumar, his pediatrician, documented every missed appointment by Alina and every kept appointment by me. Even a neighbor from Alina's apartment complex reached out. She had witnessed several exchanges and noticed how calm and structured my interactions with Leo were compared to the chaos at Alina's home. I wasn't asking these people to take sides. I wasn't campaigning for support. They were simply observing the truth and offering to speak about what they had witnessed. Each statement was added to my documentation. Each observation became part of the larger pattern that was emerging. One parent who was consistent, reliable, and child-focused. One parent who was chaotic, inconsistent, and self-focused. The evidence was assembling itself. I was just the person organizing it and making sure it was properly documented for when it would matter most. The truth was building its own case, and I was simply the keeper of the records. The day before our court hearing, I ran into Alina in the courthouse hallway. She was there filing some last-minute paperwork, and I was there meeting with my lawyer. She saw me and walked over, her face hard and angry. "You're not going to win this," she said, her voice low and threatening. "You'll never take my son away from me." I looked at her calmly. For the first time in months, I didn't feel afraid or angry or hurt. I just felt clear. "I'm not trying to take him away from you, Alina," I said quietly. "I'm trying to protect him." She laughed bitterly. "Protect him from what? From his own mother?" "From chaos," I replied. "From inconsistency. From being used as a weapon between us." She opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. For just a moment, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Maybe doubt. Maybe recognition that her narrative was falling apart. Then she turned and walked away without another word. I stood there in the courthouse hallway, and I felt something shift inside me. The power dynamic between us had changed. She could feel it, and so could I. The truth was ready to come out, and no amount of her manipulation could stop it anymore. The courtroom was packed when the hearing began. Alina's family sat on one side. My parents finally showed up and sat on mine. My lawyer stood up and began presenting our case. He didn't yell. He didn't make accusations. He simply presented facts. A timeline of missed exchanges, documented phone calls, text messages showing broken promises, photos of Leo's behavior charts from school, statements from his teacher and pediatrician. Everything was organized chronologically. Everything was factual. Everything painted a clear picture of pattern and consistency. My lawyer showed the court my attendance record. Every single scheduled visit I had kept. Every single pickup time I had honored. Every single bedtime and meal and routine I had maintained. Then he showed Alina's record. The missed appointments. The last-minute cancellations. The withheld visits. The chaos. Each fact landed in the quiet courtroom like a hammer on wood. Undeniable. Documented. True. I watched Alina's confident expression begin to crack. She whispered urgently to her lawyer. She shook her head. She looked around the room as if searching for support. But there was no narrative to spin here. No social media audience to sway. Just facts and evidence and truth. When Alina took the stand to testify, she tried to maintain her composure. She started with her prepared story about being a dedicated mother who was just trying to protect Leo from stress. But then my lawyer began asking specific questions. "Mrs. Mercer, why did you miss Leo's vaccination appointment on July 15th? She fumbled for an answer. I don't remember that specific date. According to the medical records, this was the third appointment you missed this year. Can you explain the pattern?" "There's no pattern," she insisted. "Things just came up." "What things?" She couldn't answer. The contradictions began piling up. Every explanation she gave conflicted with documented evidence. The judge's expression grew harder with each inconsistency. His questions became sharper. "Ms. Mercer, you stated that Leo was too anxious to visit his father, but his teacher's report indicates he's calmer and more focused after weekends with Mr. Mercer. Can you explain that discrepancy?" She couldn't. She tried to deflect, to blame me, to claim everyone was against her. But the truth was simply too strong, too well documented, too obvious. I watched her unravel on the stand, exposed by her own arrogance and her inability to keep her story straight. The satisfaction I felt wasn't cruel. It was just relief that the truth was finally being heard. The judge took a brief recess to review all the evidence. Those 30 minutes felt like hours. I sat in the hallway with my lawyer, trying to stay calm. When we were called back into the courtroom, the judge's expression was serious but clear. After reviewing all evidence and testimony presented today, he began, "I am ordering a modification to the custody arrangement." My heart stopped. Alina sat up straighter, hopeful. The court is implementing a true joint custody schedule. 50-50 parenting time, alternating weeks. Both parents will share decision-making authority for medical, educational, and extracurricular matters. Alina's face fell. "Your Honor, I object." The judge held up his hand. "I'm not finished. I'm also commending Mr. Mercer's parenting plan as exceptionally child-centered and consistent. This court expects both parents to maintain the same level of structure and stability that Mr. Mercer has demonstrated. The gavel came down. Final. Official. Done. Alina tried to interrupt again, but her lawyer put a hand on her arm and shook his head. There was nothing left to argue. I sat there, barely breathing, as reality sank in. True joint custody. Not just weekends. Real, equal time with my son. Justice had landed, quiet and certain. The weeks after the hearing were strange. Alina's social media went silent. The posts about toxic co-parenting stopped. The sympathy-seeking photos disappeared. Her friends and family, who had rallied around her, grew quiet too. The truth had come out in a way that couldn't be spun or explained away. Meanwhile, I focused only on Leo. On building our routine during my full weeks with him now. On helping him adjust to the new schedule. We established our calm days in both homes. He had his dinosaur and his blue blanket wherever he was. We kept consistent bedtimes. We made pancakes on Saturday mornings, just like always. Slowly, I watched him relax. The guardedness in his phone calls disappeared. The anxiety about saying the wrong thing faded. He was just a kid again. Not a pawn between parents. Not a weapon in a custody battle. Just a 6-year-old boy who loved dinosaurs and pancakes and bedtime stories. That was all I had ever wanted. For him to just be a kid. The quiet victory I felt wasn't about beating Alina. It was about giving Leo what he deserved all along. 2 stable homes instead of 1 chaotic one and 1 calm one. Peace for my son. That was the real revenge. On a Sunday evening 3 months after the hearing, I was buckling Leo into his car seat to take him back to Alina's for her week. He was holding his stuffed dinosaur and looking out the window at the sunset. "Dad," he said quietly. "Yeah, buddy. I like both homes now, but yours still feels the safest." I stopped, my hands frozen on the seatbelt buckle. Tears filled my eyes, but I blinked them away before he could see. "I'm glad you feel safe with me," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I feel safe with Mom too now," he added. "She's been different lately. Calmer. Maybe the court order had changed something for Alina. Maybe having equal custody had taken away her need for control. I didn't know, and honestly, I didn't need to know. All that mattered was that Leo felt safe in both homes now. I finished buckling him in, closed the car door, and walked around to the driver's seat. The evening sunlight was golden and warm, and for the first time in 2 years, I felt genuinely at peace. I hadn't won through anger or manipulation or revenge. I had won through calm, through consistency, through integrity, through patience. I had won by simply being the parent Leo needed, and that was enough.